To be a customer and demand you want what you want when you want it, those good old days are gone.
We knew this was coming, so I think one of the things that has helped us is we got ahead of it. We looked at options. We started educating our customers on what the options were, right? And really preparing for this is real, this is happening, and it's probably not going to change anytime soon, specifically with
We are gobbling up so much fiber that the real bottleneck is going to end up being the fiber drawing process. There's only so many fiber drawing towers on the planet that can produce fiber. Okay, good morning, everybody. Here we are again at Advanced Business Communications Podcast, number 2. Myself and Ken DePalo, my illustrious partner here. The first time we kind of gave an introduction, but our intent really is to bring out information that's very helpful to the community, talk about things that are top of mind, issues, concerns, challenges, and opportunities to engage in solutions and talk to subject matter experts that are very keen on what our options are out there in the field. So in the future, we're going to bring on some more guests. We're going to talk to a lot of people. We want to make it interactive, and we look forward to hearing any feedback from, the audience out there. But we really are trying to make this impactful for the industry, for our clients, and to really bring in, the expertise and discuss topics out there and bring some clarity to them. So with that said, Kenny, I'm going to just start us off on our first topic we picked today, was kind of talk about supply chain. And supply chain is something that really, just give a quick history on that. It's really something that came up when, right before COVID, there was an ice storm in Texas, and it just destroyed all of the imports coming out of Mexico into the United States, which all come in through Texas. All the facilities were jammed up. They couldn't get around. They couldn't drive. They couldn't go pick up product. And people really didn't know what was going on. And ever since then, since COVID and onward, we really had some major interruption in supply chain. And now we can see that with the advent of AI and the need of land, power, water, and fiber, and everybody's fighting for it. So we want to give kind of an insight of what's going on there. And we really want to be keen on really pointing out to the people out there that, the wait and to be a customer and demand you want what you want when you want it, those good old days are gone. And we lived through those years how many times, right, Kenny? With people wanting things yesterday and in a New York minute, as we used to say. But from your experience, Kenny, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has happened, it's multifold, I would say, is uh, certain either customers started to plan accordingly better, to get ahead of projects, to understand lead times, how they could be impacted for projects if they're not planning ahead, and that could be any one of a number of products. Uh, so I think we've seen the shift over time, certainly since COVID, where customers are becoming better prepared. Uh, that being said, I think we've also seen just some things with growth in the market where there are some particular products that are have been impacted pretty significantly, and we don't anticipate that that's going to change anytime soon. So I think one of the things that we wanted to do out of the gate was just kind of address what we're seeing, address maybe some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that other folks are talking about, maybe some of our competitors, where you have to be careful what you hear in the market, where not all of it may be 100% accurate, right?
Yeah,
And
no,
so we want
that
to
is true.
address some of those concerns and how we can help to address some of those concerns up front so they don't become an issue and allow you to have your product,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your project, kick off on time, I'll say.
No, you bring up a good point, and I think I should preface that with saying, in the market, what's really happening today is the hyperscales, right? They're using very high fiber counts. They're using ribbon fiber specifically, They're going preterm where they can, otherwise they're ribbon splicing, and that is the world in which they live in. And everybody knows that ribbon fiber is way out there on lead time. It's not just, a specific Corning issue. It's an industry-wide issue. We are gobbling up so much fiber that the real bottleneck is going to end up being the fiber drawing process. There's only so many fiber drawing towers on the planet that can produce fiber. Obviously, Corning being one of the largest is right in the thick of that. But I bring that up because, we have all these customers now on the enterprise side that are looking at building AI. What do we do? Can we get enough product? One of the interesting things that's happening in the marketplace in regards to hyperscales, and I think it's important to note, is that they are parlaying orders like crazy. This brings me back to like the year 2000 with the .com, when everybody was just parlaying orders because you couldn't get it. So if it took 26 weeks, some were out 72 weeks back then, some suppliers, and people just parlay orders to make sure they were always in the queue to get supply. And that's actually happening now with data centers. There are people that are going out there, the capital, the money, even the hyperscalers are going out there, and they're looking for land that has enough power and fiber and water around it. And there's all kinds of issues with that. Get passed by the community, zoning laws, environmental laws. How do you bring the power in? Is the power available? And there's a lot of communities resisting those bills within their communities. So what they're doing is they're putting in bids for 3, 4, 5, 6 land parcels, and they're just waiting to see which one comes in first with all the ingredients that they need to build, and they're aborting the rest of them. So the demand looks much greater than it is, and a lot of it is dissipating. The capital's getting slow to fund. So we had a lot of issues in the hyperscale. What's interesting is that the enterprise is not a hyperscale marketplace, meaning they don't use all the products the hyperscales do. They don't need the large fiber counts that the hyperscales do. They don't need the speed of employment with the urgency of capital being spent. And so there's many, many options out there. So specifically, Ken, what you're bringing up is the issue of ribbon fiber, right? So, there's no ribbon fiber. And, I see posts on LinkedIn today from competitors just taking that 52-week lead time. If you just called in Corning today and said, hey, I need some ribbon fiber, you're going to get a 52+ week lead time. And that sounds ludicrous, but they're taking that information, bringing it out to market and say, hey, Corning can't deliver for 52 weeks. And just a blanket statement like that, that we can't deliver and they can, and here's the amount of time we can. And quite honestly, when it comes to enterprise products, we're still in a 3 to 4 week lead time turnaround, much better than most of the competitors. But those are the product set differentiators that the community doesn't know about, and they're getting a little hyped up about what's real, what's not. We're almost in the political fake news business a little bit. But I think you're talking
True.
specifically to that. But Kenny, you've had a lot of experience with that, and give some of us your thoughts on, because we both handle a lot of customers, a lot of global customers. And what are you seeing?
Yeah, and I think so. We saw this, certainly probably midway or maybe even before that of 2025, right? We knew this was coming. So I think one of the things that has helped us is we got ahead of it. We looked at options. We started educating our customers on what the options were, right? And really preparing for this is real, this is happening, and it's probably not going to change anytime soon, specifically with ribbon cable, right? So we do have great options. Um, and working closely with not only our end user customers, but really our, large engineering firms that are involved in the
No, good
specifications a lot
point.
of times, right? Contractors to make sure that they're comfortable in deploying something different, right? Which actually, at the end of the day, um, is I think we've seen, and we've gotten feedback that it's actually easier than what we were seeing with ribbon cable terminations in the field, right? So we you know, to your point, with those products, we actually can deliver much quicker, not impact timelines for projects. Even if there are those uh-oh moments where they need something quickly, right? We're not in a position where we're going to set the project back. So I think that's one of the things that we bring to bear, not only with our team, with the Corning team, specifically with fiber, and our partners and engineering firms that have embraced this now and are very much used to that this is going to be the new norm
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward, right?
You know, and I want to take an opportunity to expand on that because I think you're hitting the nail on the head. And we've had enough projects and large projects that we've both worked on where specifically, they wanted to use ribbon fiber. They want to terminate, an MTP and splice it right onto the end of it because MTP is one of the major connectivities of choice, even in the backbone on an infrastructure for the enterprise. We have one large, corporate headquarters being renovated in New York City with a 2 million square foot building. And they actually want to come in and put in, preterm MTP connectivity, which they're going to do, which is a far cry from what the market's been over the last several decades. But I think one of the things that Zoot done, like you said, to get ahead of it, and one of the things that I think is paramount, both with Eaton and Corning, is that when we get a client, for example, ribbon, and we say, well, you can't get ribbon, but we can give you, regular fiber, and then we could show you, if you don't already know, how to ribbonize that fiber at the end in order to make the splice into the MTP connector. And, we have the procedure. We actually have on our own staff at ABC the technical prowess to be able to go out there and train and show people and put them on the job site. Corning has an army of what we call pioneers, which are field deployable engineers and go out, teach, support, and train. And they can do it anywhere on the globe. Same with Eaton on the support on the power side. And I think that's something that is really scalable. And we've seen that and proved that with our clients that we can get a solution set and we could support them and we can kind of train and handhold them through the process, both live, on site, with Zoom, webinars, engineering, review of design in order to make sure that we're, installing it properly for the, one of the complexities today is that, they want to wire every GPU to every GPU. So, we started out with spine and leaf. We had a mesh network. It seemed complicated at first, but now it seems so simple. But then you throw AI on top of that and the mesh that needs, and now it's even more complicated. So I think we are able to kind of streamline that and make easy steps and how to build that and give them the whole modeling and erector set type of plans you know, or not to date myself, to use, what's that toy everybody uses there to put the cubes together, right? Legos, and
Right.
kind of plug and play it and really define it and make it easy. And like you said, it's not just the installer, it's the end user has to understand it. The consulting engineering firm has to understand it. They have to be able to document, specify, show procedure. And I think behind the scenes, we do all that and make that very easy. We'll talk about that later, I think, in our podcast about assessments, both for fiber and power. But I think it's really important to bring home that, Corning has that breadth and depth of product as well as the expertise in the field over time to bring those things to bear in these times. So ribbon's 52 weeks out there. I think certain loose tube products or other type products are anywhere from, 4 to 21 weeks, right now today. So we do have to work with our clients to really spell out the options, spell out the timelines. When's the project coming? When are they going to hit? When do you need the material on there? When should you order it, etc. And
Well, and I think the other thing too is that, one of the things that we haven't talked about really is the close relationships we have with our distribution partners also, right? So as part of these
yeah,
discussions,
valid point.
they've been, at the table with us or involved in those discussions, and they have been stepped up, uh, and understand what, what how they can be successful in these instances as well, right? Bringing more inventory into stock, making sure that they're prepared uh, as well to service the market. So it's been great to really have the entire ecosystem understanding what's happening and on board,
Yeah, yeah, and I think
from the fiber
it's
perspective.
another great point you bring out. I'd like to give a shout out to our distribution partners because some of them have really stepped up. I had been in distribution before, and obviously, if a product sits there for a month, it's money on the shelf. There's fees and interest paying down that money back to the organization. So it does have a carrying cost to the distributor. but I've seen them really be flexible where they're willing to bring it in, they're willing to hold it for longer times without impact to cost or schedule. If it does have to go for a long period of time to order something now that comes in and hold, they're really working with us and the client in order to minimize the impact of what does that mean to, pre-order and hold it and do those logistics.
I think it's like the field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. If you stock it, you will sell it, right? I mean, I think that we've kind of shown that, and they are fully on board. So that's been great as well. One thing I wanted to mention as well is, kind of started the conversation with fiber because that tends to be the thing in our world that causes, it has been the cause of some of these lead time concerns and supply chain issues. But I will say on the Eaton side, at least in the world that we live in, we've actually been able to capitalize on their position in the market, their stock position, their willingness to take risk and stock product. We don't deal as much in the gray space, but you mentioned before how people are either, as it applies to land, right? But same thing is happening there where people are buying capacity, right? They need RPPs or switchgear or, that type of product that we're not generally involved in, but obviously it affects the timings of the project, right? So in our world, really more at the rack level power that we're dealing with every day. Uh, Again, having great partners that are willing to take those steps, put things into stock, support the products that we have, and again, with our distribution partners doing the same thing. So I think we're very fortunate to have such strong positions with the companies that we deal with, but the ecosystem that we deal with is really understanding the challenges and, you know, distributors being distributors and having the product available, right? It has been a great thing for us as well.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later about, some of the acquisitions and products and industries and how things are changing in that area too, as far as, you know, what's the options with the customers, what are the product sets, and what are those things that could lead to a more successful build and options that they may not have considered before. For example, modular being one of them, where you can't build it on the land, but, we do have modular data centers that could just land and plug them in. But, with that said, I think, it's very important, again, that whole supply chain issue. And, one of the things that we've always talked about is, we don't get to talk to the people that we don't service, right? We have built a business, we have great clients, we have a very long retention on our clients, so they work with us and they grow with us, and we build with and we grow with them as well, more importantly. But I think it's the client we don't see that's dealing with vendors out there or dealing with the people out there and then not looking at all the options. And I can just encourage everybody to look at all the options. And I always said, I think you'll remember this, Kenny, that, we're not afraid for people to go out and shop and look at the market and see. And we say the more you look and the more you do your homework, the better we look as far as what we can deliver,
Agreed.
what our options are. And I'm going to be a little cute here because one of the things when I start out in sales that I love is this little thing. And rather than put it on the screen, it's a little thing we used to hand out where you could see here that it talks about the basically this is like Braveheart, right? They don't have time to see salespeople because they have a war to fight and everybody's got swords, but the salesman's trying to sell them a Gatling gun. Um, and the king has no time to see a salesperson because he's too busy fighting a war. And I think that's appropriate in the sense that it's the people we don't know and the people we don't see. And, we're really trying to make this a reach. Um, to the community at large to say, hey, let us in, let's have conversations, and I think one of the things in the area of power, for example, Kenny, you could speak to that. I mean, I think you've seen, and we both seen some great opportunities based on clients we never talked to, only because, at first they were holding out for, say, a PDU, and they use a specific PDU, and hey, I get it. You're loyal to it, you use it, you're used to it, It's kind of like my wife always said, sometimes practice just makes permanent. Doesn't mean it's better. But when it went out to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 17 weeks, 27 weeks, they're waiting for transformers, they're waiting for RPPs. We had one client hold up a job for 27 months because they refused to look at anybody else but the one that they were using because that was their standard. And quite honestly, it doesn't make sense with the type of money and capital that's being held up and the people and the timelines. And these are financial institutions that are very competitive and have to be raced to market, etc. Talk to us a little bit about that in your experience.
Well, I think we've seen a few things. To your point, not only are we growing the business organically, but we have got, been brought into opportunities where others have not been able to deliver. Um, so between that and I'd say the roadmap that Eaton has, especially on the power side, especially on the PVU side, the UPS side, at the rack level, the great products that they've been developing, and there's been a flow of new products over time. But again, in those instances where you are holding up a job site, right? You're holding up a project. It's the longer it takes for those customers. And again, we deal with many customers in the financial world. That's revenue generating time for them. So whether that is the end user itself, whether that is some of the multi-tenant data centers that we deal with, and the cost when the lease is signed, or they're trying to get the lease signed and they can't turn it up. I mean, they're all in a race, the digitals and the Equinixes and the QTSs, they compete at some level as well. So the quicker that they can get something turned up, then the revenue stream starts for them, right? So again, where excuse me, where customers maybe wouldn't have looked at ours product in the past, they certainly are doing that moving forward. So we're fortunate that we've been brought into some of those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of that project we had with one of the financial institutions where we were not selling them the EPDUs. They were using somebody else's, and they couldn't get them in time, and they had the build, and it was all specced out, and it was in the middle of the build, and we had the opportunity to be able to shine to show them our service and ability to react. And I think their biggest problem was they couldn't get them installed fast enough, and their crews and contractors were already busy doing everything else. And we said, "Oh, no problem. We'll come in. We'll bring in we'll bring in our tech and our people and our salespeople, and we'll bring in the whole team." And we went to the data center and we installed EPDUs and all the cabinets for them so that they can keep on schedule. But I think that speaks to, what we need to do in order to make a customer successful in their timelines and and what we will do to make sure that our clients get what they need when they need it at the time they need it. And I think it just is a little something extra that you don't see out there, in the support infrastructure out there on the vendor side. So it gives us the opportunity to show.
Yeah, I think yeah, one of the things I do tell people, and clearly we understand spec position, and we've been fortunate enough to have spec position at a number of customers for a long time and continue to grow this spec positions. But so we in those instances where we're not the number one, we get it. But we like to be the first call if our customers can't get their number one choice, right? Or a spec that they have in place, right? Because we can deliver it in those instances. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. This is kind of a thought process here, and trying to figure out what's important to communicate out there. And I think one of the things that you're bringing up is, the ability to be able to react, right? And one of the things that we get caught up a lot, like even some of our own customers that are in a panic, they don't know what to do. They can't get a hold of us, or they want Ken, for example, and they can't get Ken on the phone. So they call a distributor partner and they get an inside salesperson from the distributor partner. And, most of the accounts that we handle, um, we can kind of move things around if we're involved. If we're not involved, there's nothing we can do. But if you just call customer service and say, "Hey, what's your lead time on, you know, a 144 fiber trunk, and the standard lead time might be 8 weeks, and they say, oh my God, that's not going to work, right? Or whatever the answer is, it's not going to work. And unfortunately, what happens is a lot of times they're not calling us because they're getting an answer from a corporate person that's using a sheet to show everybody general lead times for the public. But that doesn't mean that's the lead time for the client that's already being serviced, that is already forecasted, is already in the system, already doing business with us. And if they, so I think it's important to let everybody out there know, like, contact your team leads. And if you don't, get to one of their team members and get the answer for you specifically for your application, because you don't want to be in a generic pool. I don't want to be in a generic pool if I need to get stuff done. I want to feel like you're paying attention to me. I'm special. You appreciate my business, and we do that. But I only say this because a lot of people forget and they call a customer service rep that doesn't even is not even being told who's on the other end of the line. They're just being asked what the lead time is. And then they run with that. And then the whole planning process starts changing. Lost time, lost calls, different vendors, more answers, more uncertainty, specs changing. So now the integrity of the solution may be at risk too. So I think it's very important to bring that up.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that that's another place that our team excels, and having, um, folks that have the inside track to different people within the companies that we represent also.
Kind of like the speed pass at Disney, right? If you want to be general public and
Exactly.
get online, but you've already paid for the speed pass. So, but you have to talk to the speed pass, department in order to
Right.
get in front of the line.
Right.
Well, all right. I think we covered supply chain pretty well. Any last thoughts you want to close with?
No, I just emphasizing, can't stress enough that planning is key wherever possible, um, and forecasting is key. But just to set customers' fears, um, aside, not setting them aside, but keeping them at bay. That if something does come up that is it's a fire drill. We do have products and teams in place to be able to deliver, in a quick manner to keep the projects on track, or to deal with the unexpected, because it happens, right? Unexpected uh, instances of having to get something turned up right away.
The best laid plans of mice and men.